First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton is visiting Zimbabwe tonight. It's part of her 2-week tour of Africa. Yesterday, Mrs. Clinton met with Archbishop Desmond Tutu and hailed South Africa's transition from apartheid to democracy. Now with more on Hillary Clinton's trip, here's BET News correspondent Khalil Gay.
First Lady of the United States, Hillary Rodham Clinton, arrived in Dakar early Monday. First step of an African goodwill trip that will underscore the United States' commitment to continued active engagement with the continent and highlight the progress of democracy. Mrs. Clinton, who is traveling with Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, George Moose, and USAID Deputy Director for Africa, Carol Peasley, was welcomed at the Dakar Leopold Sédar Senghor International Airport by the Senegalese Minister of Children, Women and Family, and by many other high-ranking U.S. diplomatic and Senegalese officials. Mrs. Clinton, who is visiting Africa with a 17-year-old daughter, Chelsea, began her visit with what the curator of the slave house on Gorée Island called a pilgrimage to the place where millions of Africans, the black gold of the triangular trade, passed through to be transported to the American colonies. On the island, she was warmly welcomed by the population of Gorée, who gathered all along her way to express their gratefulness. In the slave house, she religiously followed the explanation of Joseph Ndiaye, the curator, who showed the different slave cells to the First Lady and recalled the subhuman conditions slaves were kept in. Leaving the island of Gorée, she went to the Martin Luther King Girls' School, one of the most progressive all-girl junior high schools in the country. Mrs. Clinton declared that the education of girls and women is one of the most important functions of any country. Before Mrs. Clinton, the girls of the school performed sketches centered on Martin Luther King's life and also on racism during the civil rights movement in the United States. She later left the school for the village of Samjai, an hour from the capital Dakar. Here, she was welcomed in the pure African tradition. She was also given insights into how people can work together to help themselves. Mrs. Clinton made a stop in the city of Thiès to visit the Peace Corps Training Center and greet the volunteers. According to the First Lady of the United States of America, Senegal's recognition of the contribution women can and do make to development is heartening. The involvement of women in all facets of development makes optimal use of Senegal's human resources and talents. Mrs. Clinton concluded her trip to Senegal with a meeting with President Abdou Diouf and Mrs. Diouf. In Dakar, Senegal, Khalil Gay for BET News.
As the First Lady spread her message of peace and unity this week, more unrest in the Central African nation of Zaire. The Clinton administration is warning U.S. citizens not to travel to Zaire, and it is preparing for a possible evacuation of Americans from that country. Meantime, there's a new man trying to become Zaire's new president, and he's trying to gather support.